And now the floor is yours, Bennett Conlon. You have a
Okay.
rant. You have to set the scene for how important this weekend is for the Sun Belt Conference.
Dude, I love the 12-team playoff. The 12-team playoff has me super amped because we're talking not just about like a New Year's Six Bowl. We're talking about a group of 5 team that's going to play in the college football playoff this year, which is very cool. JMU fans, I think we're tempering this down after beating Gardner-Webb with a goal line stand, and that is fair, right? I think it's fair to not want to talk college football playoff, but I think it's huge for the Sun Belt, which has dubbed itself as like the best conference in the group of 5. This is a massive week for the conference, largely because the other G5 conferences, excluding Conference USA, which is just fraudulent garbage.
It's
The,
FCS.
the other group of 5 conferences, very impressive to start this season. Like, very impressive. Shout out to the MAC. Northern Illinois has a road win against Notre Dame, and they have a game coming up against NC State, which looks bad. And Grayson McCall is banged up. Maybe winnable. They could have 2 Power 5 wins. Who knows? Or Power 4 wins, I guess. Would be Pac-12 becoming whatever it's becoming. You've also got Toledo in the MAC beat Mississippi State by like 24. It was like 41-17, I think, over the weekend. That's a big-time win. They've got a nice chance to go undefeated now with the Power 4 win. UNLV has 2 Big 12 wins, 2 through 3 games. They beat Houston by 20, and then Houston the next week, I think they played Oklahoma within 4, and they seem like they're improving. That might look pretty good for UNLV at the end of the year. They also beat Kansas 23-20 due to some solid play, some solid defense, and incredible fumble luck. If you have not seen the play where the fumble's on the ground, I think everyone on Kansas's defense had a chance to touch the ball without a UNLV player even coming into the screen, and then UNLV recovered. One of the most absurd plays I've ever seen in the season. But that's a huge win. Boise State, if you put on the games, they're probably the best team in the group of 5, man. Like, Ashton Genty is disgusting at running back. Like a legitimate Heisman contender. They played Oregon within 3. Probably should have won the game. They gave up 2 kick return touchdowns in a 3-point loss on the road to Oregon, which is supposed to contend for the Big Ten. So they're absolutely in the mix. They already have a road win against Georgia Southern. So you've got the MAC. You've got the Mountain West. They're right there. The American, Memphis beat Florida State. They're undefeated. They seem like the team in the American that's going to have the best chance to make a run. So all of these conferences, again, outside of Conference USA, which is hot garbage, and UNLV, I mean, not UNLV, Liberty looks bad to start this season. Liberty has not looked good. We've got sirens outside. I don't know if you can hear that. That's because of how poorly Liberty has played. People are looking for Jamie Chadwell, trying to figure out what is going on. But the Sun Belt doesn't have those same wins. So this is a huge weekend. Georgia State beat Vanderbilt. I think we can all agree that Georgia State's not going to go to the college football playoff this year, right? It's a rebuilding year. Nice win over Vandy, but like, you're not a college football playoff contender. Jack, I think the college football playoff contenders coming into the year were who? Probably Texas State, App State,
And JMU is a dark horse.
and JMU. Yeah,
A
I
lot
think
of question marks. And Texas State blows their opportunity on Thursday.
really blew that, man. They only lost by 3. They had that game at multiple
They
times.
were up. They were up 21-7 and scored 21 unanswered points at one point in that game. It's a tough one you let slip out. Then you got App State getting boat raced by Clemson.
That's a bad look.
Like,
That's a bad look.
Didn't even look competitive in that. And that is supposed to be the best team in the East.
Right. So, like, App State could certainly get themselves back in it, but they're going to need some help because losing to Clemson 66-20 is bad. Like, Clemson had 35 after the first quarter. They could have stopped scoring and would have won by 2 touchdowns. That's brutal. You've got, you mentioned it, Texas State 31-28 loss to Arizona State at home in a game they absolutely could have won. They don't really have a ton of other opportunities. They beat up on UTSA, but UTSA might like not be good. They look bad against Texas State. They also look bad against Texas. So we'll see what happens there. But who else is going to make those moves? You finally have a chance this weekend with some of the quote unquote like playoff contenders for the Sun Belt to make an impact. JMU is one of them. They play at North Carolina. They're about a 10.5 point underdog. It's a winnable game. We'll get into that. It would go a long way for the Sun Belt to get that win. If JMU wins it, they're immediately in college football playoff contention. Like, they'll be talked about as long as they're undefeated if they can get this one. It's a huge game. Big opportunity. Louisiana has a couple huge opportunities. They host a pretty good Tulane team this weekend. I think they're a 3-point underdog. And then they're going to play at Wake Forest next weekend. And that's a bad ACC team. So if you get both of those, you're 4-0 with a nice win over Tulane. And then you've also got a win over Wake Forest, an ACC team. You're undefeated and you're in a chance where you can make a little bit of a run. And then Coastal Carolina is another game I've got circled this weekend. They're a 3-point home underdog to UVA. That's a winnable game. So they could get to 4-0, maybe put themselves in the mix. So those are 3 huge opportunities. And then you have a few that, like, if the Sun Belt could get it, it would be crazy, but also like these spreads are comical. So you've got Marshall, a 40-point road underdog to Ohio State. God help their souls. You've got Arkansas State, a 21.5-point underdog to Iowa State. I don't think Arkansas State's going to be a playoff contender, but their lone loss this year was a 10-point loss to Michigan. They did a really nice job scoring garbage time touchdowns to make that look better than it was. Good for them. And then you've got Georgia Southern's a 36-point dog to Ole Miss. I think their defense is going to have a really hard time in that one. And UL Monroe is only a 44.5-point dog to Texas. That can be brutal as well. So I don't think those games are going to go their way, but JMU, North Carolina, Coastal Virginia, Louisiana, Tulane. Sunbelt could use like at least 2 of those 3.
Not to get too into the numbers too, but for those huge spread games, it would be really nice if those teams kind of kept it a little competitive and they covered the spread so that, that helps the overall numbers for the FPI. It helps the overall conference look a little bit better. So you're expected to lose by 44 ULM, maybe lose by 24, which is still an embarrassing loss, but would be huge for the numbers.
And just to go back to those numbers, those FPI numbers, to prove that I'm not sort of a Sunbelt doomsday guy, ESPN's FPI gives a chance of making the playoff for every team in the country every week, and they update it. It's going to change a lot early in the season, but the top 5 teams, there's only 5 teams right now with a percentage in the group of 5, a percentage over 10%. Boise State, 24.3%, Memphis, 22%, UNLV, 18%, Northern Illinois, 14.2%, and Toledo, 12.5%. So for those keeping track, that's Mountain West, American, Mountain West, MAC. Coastal Carolina has the best chance right now of any Sunbelt team. They're 9th out of all the group of 5 teams with a 4.1% chance. So like they're right now, the Sunbelt is not in that early playoff picture. And that can change this weekend with some wins over good teams, and they have a chance to do it. So I think it's a massive weekend for the Sun Belt because the conference, I would argue, is the deepest group of 5, but they need somebody at the top to sort of take a stranglehold and be like, hey, I'm going to make a run at the playoff.
Yeah, those numbers will change drastically. I know you said it, but JMU was 14% after their win against Charlotte to make the playoff. Now they aren't even in the top 20 because of what happened with Gardner-Webb. Now, if you go out and beat UNC by 2 touchdowns, all of a sudden you're probably in the top 5 because of it can just swing so drastically. So right now, 9th is the best team in the Sun Belt. But if Coastal goes out and wins, and then JMU wins, and even Louisiana wins this weekend, all of a sudden you might have Coastal, JMU, Louisiana as like the 3rd, 4th, 5th teams in there. So keep an eye on that. It'll be really fun. But you did it well. I mean, this is a big weekend. Sunbelt hasn't had a lot of early opportunities against Power 4 teams this season. This is their big weekend against just a lot of Power 4 marquee teams, marquee conferences where they can get these big wins and really push themselves back into the forefront of the picture and be that preeminent group of 5 conference that the Sun Belt was last season and all the metrics said they were during the offseason.
And I think that, like, for the JMU specifically, last year JMU beat UVA. I think UVA ended with 3 wins, right? I think they were 3-9. North Carolina already has 3 wins. Like, this is such a higher level. North Carolina is going to do work for you if you beat them, like for your playoff case. The rest of their schedule after JMU: Duke, Pitt, Georgia Tech, Virginia, Florida State, Wake Forest, Boston College, NC State. None of those teams are good. Like, it doesn't mean they're going to beat them all because I'm not sure how good North Carolina is.
Man,
NC State's been brutal to start the year.
I know.
So, I mean, you look at it, what is that? How many games after 8 conference games? I mean, 4-4 is like the worst I feel like Carolina could do, even with quarterback issues. You're going to have a 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 win North Carolina team this year. If you can beat them, that's going to look really, really nice on the resume. They're probably going to end the year, I think, as a top 50, top 60 kind of team in college football because Hampton's so good. They've got talent on defense, but they're beatable. The thing is, their schedule is so favorable that it's going to look nice if you can clip them.
I'm looking forward to it. Should be
It's
a
a big
really, really fun game.